In today's video, we'll be showing you some of the best drills you can do to improve your putting. DP World Tour winner Chris Paisley has ranked in the top 5 putters on tour for most of his career, and he joins us to show you how you can improve the consistency of your putting.
So you've basically been one of the best putters on the DP World Tour basically the whole time you've been on tour.
Yeah.
You've got a bag of tricks.
Yeah.
What is like the standard technical stuff you always go back to work on your stroke?
Yeah, so I've got several things I just kind of look out for. Chalk line is one of the main things I use. I've got a mirror, I've got blue tack and some gates and stuff like that. So I'm basically just trying to get my setup the same the whole time. So I use the mirror to check my eye line. Like one of my errors is my kind of eye line tilts to the right, and that affects aim, and it kind of messes me up a little bit. So I use the mirror to make sure my eyes are over the ball and straight, if you know what I mean. I'm not gonna too much that way. And I've got the gate to obviously make sure my start line's good. I've got the chalk line, which kind of helps build your kind of awareness of where your aim is and where your start line is and breaks and stuff like that. Use the blue tack. I put that on the face of my putter to work on the strike. I also have on my phone, I've got a metronome to work on tempo. So I basically just I do 20 putts on the mirror, and then I do 10 putts on, I've got the Phil Kenyon mat as well, where I hit longer putts on that. And I'm basically just recalibrating every single day, making sure my setup's right, make sure my strike's good, start line aim, all that stuff. And that just, a bit like the chipping, just gives me a solid foundation to kind of work from. And then I move on to all the performance and green reading and all that type of stuff.
So you would do this every day you practice, and then also presumably when you get to tournaments, like getting ready for the week.
Yeah. So every day when I practice, I always start off my putting practice with this kind of stuff, and then the only time I don't really do it would be before tournament rounds. I prefer just to get more into the visualization stuff before the round and just working on my pace. And I'll often do a little bit of this after the round. If it didn't feel quite right during the round or whatever, I'll just almost recalibrate again to be ready for the next day.
I think a lot of these are really nice drills though, because obviously a chalk line you can basically get anywhere. It basically costs nothing, and the same with blue taxes. One of those things you can easily do anywhere. I don't think people quite realise the importance of aim and setup, because I've done quite a bit of testing with Paul Hurrian at Quintic. And even if your setup is exactly the same, but your ball position is slightly different, it completely changes all your launch competitions. It's
absolutely. It's
crazy.
Yeah, it could blow your mind if you kind of thought about it too much, because you think you just set up to the ball the same every day, but you don't. There's always just little variations. Every day I do this. Someday I might be clipping the left gate to start with, and kind of figure out what's going on there. Some days the strike's a bit out for whatever reason. And there's just all these. So that's why it's important just to have this checkpoint, just to keep everything it's never going to be perfect, but if you can keep the parameters as tight as possible in terms of how far off your setup gets, and the setup just has so many implications for all sorts really. Putting obviously seems very fickle. One day it just feels great, and the next you can't hold a thing, and people almost think it's this mystical art, whereas in some ways it is, but there's always a reason for these things. There's a reason why you're missing putts, and it seems mystical because most people don't understand it, and even obviously I don't fully understand putting still, but I have all these processes that help keep my parameters reasonably tight, technically, and that gives me the best chance possible of holding putts.
How much tolerance are you giving yourself there? It doesn't look like much.
No, obviously pretty tight. I mean, I don't have a number, but I still want to miss some because I want it to be hard enough to where I've got to pay attention, but I don't want it to be so hard that I end up a basket case because I can't strike it at the middle. So there's a nice sweet spot there, and it can vary, day to day a little bit.
I think that's a really nice drill though, because I guess with iron shots and stuff, it's very obvious when people have hit it out the toe, or they get a bit of mud there and they can see it. With putting, people don't realise how often they'll strike it not anywhere near the middle of the club face.
And
so that gives you really quick feedback.
And it's amazing just having it there. Just subconsciously gets you to think about striking it well more, and I immediately start striking my putts better. I do this every day, and I still don't strike every putt perfect. You talk to someone like Phil Hurrian, he would be able to show you the data of when you strike it 5 mils out the heel, or high on the face, low on the face, it does have quite a big effect on what the ball does, and obviously pace wise as well. If you're trying to hit putts close from 50-60 feet on fast greens, if your strike's a little bit out, you can leave a putt a long way short, or if you're used to misstriking it and then you start flushing your putts, you can end up hitting it 10 feet past as well. So yeah, again, it's building processes to kind of try and so I can forget about technique when I'm putting. Like when I'm doing all this, I imagine to like amateurs looking on, they might think, oh, he's got a lot going on there, that's very technical. But the purpose of it is that I can leave the technique. Once I've done all this work, then I'm very much an instinctive putter. Like I have no technical thoughts in my brain. I'm just purely visualizing my putts, like really trying to see lines, like paint pictures and trying to be a bit more of an artist when I'm actually on the course. And I can do that because I've got a solid foundation of technique. So most people do the opposite, where they kind of don't practice well. They just come and hit some random putts. And then when they get on the course and start really thinking about setup and ball position and all that stuff. So I try and do all this to be able to then forget about it. I really like this mirror because you've got this bottom one where I use the line to put my putter line on it. And then I'm matching my eyes up. So my eyes are directly over the putter on the correct line, so they're not, I tend to go a bit that way, and then I'll aim right, and then I kind of start doing, obviously exaggerate, I start doing that to get it back on line. So like that to me feels like my eyes are pointed left, but I know they're not because I'm using the mirror. And then
I'll just get everything squared up.
So everything's square. A few practice strokes to kind of work on like the tempo. So now in the mirror I can see my forearms, I can see my shoulders, I can see my eyes, so I can see that all those are square. I just hit the putt. And I'll often put to a hole, but often not. I'll kind of work on my pace when I'm doing this as well. So I'll start off with a tee at 10 feet, hit a few, move it to 15, move it back to 6, move it to 20, and just so I'm not just hitting the same length putt all the time. So although I'm doing technical practice, I'm actually adding a bit of feel into it as well.
You're making this look very easy. I know that gate's not very big.
Yeah. It's and again, it's like for me anyway. It's the right difficulty because I do hit it every now and then. I mean, it's not that often I'll get 20 out of 20. I'll usually have one where I hit the gate, so it's enough to kind of make me have to focus. But again, I think when I first started using this, I would hit it a lot, and like that kind of can knock your confidence. So again, it's about finding the right parameters for you. Like this company, I think, do a gold, silver, and bronze gate, and obviously the bronze is quite wide, so you can start off with that one. And the easiest thing to do is just stick some tees down. You can start off with the tees quite wide, and then move them in as you get better. Yeah, so I'll usually hit 20 putts like that, and then I'll take this off. So that's kind of me working on my shorter stroke. Like every day I have my journal, and I'll write how many out of 20 I got on that, and if there was a variance left or right on the gate, just to, I start to notice a pattern that I'm hitting the left gate a lot, then ask my brother why, and it's his job to then sort me out.
Something's gone wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Help.
Again, the nice thing is like my processes are pretty tight now, so rarely do I get like too far off with my stroke. I mean, obviously some days it feels better than others, like anyone else, but yeah, the parameters are fairly tight by now.
I think it's one of those things, people watch golf and see how well tour pros putt, but they don't see any of this process that goes into it.
Yeah, I think probably changing a bit now, but I think putting was always seen as like you either have it or you don't. And I suppose now with like just technology and stuff, they've quantified what good putters do. It's the quality of their aim. Like Sam Putt Lab's great for figuring out how good your aim is. And you've got all sorts of things that do that now, and understanding the role of the ball. And I've got the perfect putter thing for green reading, and so my understanding of green reading's shot up since I started as a pro. Yes, it's now all these different things are understood a bit better, so people there's a much clearer way to become a good putter now, whereas in the past I think it was seen more as great putters like someone like Brad Faxon. He had his feels and they worked great, but he probably couldn't quantify them like they do now, if you know what I mean.
Almost like the TrackMan for putting it.
Yeah, a little bit like that.
Everyone knows what you need to do.
Yeah. There's just the information now is so much better. Everyone has access to good information now, whereas in the past it was kind of the great players figured it out for themselves in a way. This is to work on, obviously, my longer stroke. So I haven't got the mirror, but by now I've hopefully dialed in my setup. And I'll use the lines on the arc I'll kind of check. I'll do a few practice strokes, so I kind of check how does that feel relative to where it is on these arc lines, and just make sure that's all good. and then I'll put out tees and do some different tests where I'm working on my pace, but I'm also, working on aim, start line. I can work on length of stroke a bit as well. Yeah, I'm just kind of like 10 putts like this, just to dial it in.
And are you hitting them all the same distance, or are you working on different
distances? So what I do at tournaments a lot of the time is we start off at about 15 feet, and I'll have a 18-inch, 2 tees, 18 inches apart, distance-wise, and then I've got 3 goes to finish it inside there. So then if I do, then I move on another 3 feet, and I've basically got a note of how far I've gotten. So I try and beat the record every time before I run out of goes. I think my record's like 45 feet or something. But that's just another way of, I'm kind of working on mainly technique, but then adding an element of like skill into it as well.
I think it's one of those areas, isn't it? People think, oh, it's just feel pace putting, but actually it does really come back to techniques. If you're not striking out the middle, like you said before, your distance control is going to be so bad. And also if you've not trained your eye to like know how far different distance, you're never going to put like consistently. Yeah,
exactly. And feels, and it's developed, isn't it? It's not just a thing that the golfing gods gave you. It's like you earn it, And you can do easy drills where I'll hit the putt and not look up. If I'm putting to a tee or a hole, not look up, and then I've got to guess where it's finished. I do another one with my brother where, see if I'm trying to hit it to that ball, I'll take my 3 practice strokes. I'm really trying to like visualize the putt, and then I take 1 more practice stroke, and he'll start a stopwatch as soon as I would have made contact. And then I've got to try and visualize the putt and then tell him when the ball would stop.
Oh, nice.
So then I'll hit the putt, try and recreate that same stroke. And then he would do the stopwatch again and see how close the 2 numbers were. It just really forces you to see not just the line of the putt, but how fast it starts off. And then, if it's going up a slope, how much does that affect it? And then you watch it kind of finish out. And then you hit the putt for real and see how close your picture was to the real thing.
Which presumably really helps with green readings. I think a lot of the time people get good at looking maybe near the hole, but forget like the ball's moving at different speeds at different times, so it's going to break differently because of that.
Like green reading's like the number one thing that people don't, even professionals don't give enough credit to. Like basically everyone in the world under reads putts and then over aims, if you know what I mean. They'll think the putt's right edge when in fact it's like a foot outside right, but then they'll actually aim a foot outside right, but they think they're aimed right edge, and they'll hold the putt and think, oh great, I've read the putt really well there, but they haven't. And I spend loads of my time just working on green readings. I know I do it as well, but to a lesser extent than most, but I try and narrow the gap between what the read actually is and what I think it is, if you know what I mean. Like the closer those two are, then the more consistent your green reading is. And I think that's probably the one thing that would separate me as a good putter, is my ability to read greens.
So if you were looking at a putt on here, how would you go about kind of figuring out what the breaks were? What would you give people as tips to maybe help them work on their green reading?
So now by this point I've forgotten about technique. I'm like, that's all taken care of. So it starts as I'm coming up to the green. So like, especially on your home course, the general pitch of a green. So like here, I know it's tilted, it's downhill, fairly straight, probably going a little right to left. And that's before I've even like looked at the putt. And I always start from behind the hole, take the flag out. And basically what I'm looking for here is, how's the ball going to come into the hole? Like what angle does it need to come in on? So I get down and I can see it's just slightly off straight. So I'll do this where like the angle, it's probably, I don't know, a 5 to 10 degree angle that the ball is going to come into the hole. It's just coming in slightly right to left. So then I've kind of picked out a spot, usually about 2/3 of the way. So the spot's around here. I look from the sides as well, both sides. Then I look from this side and I basically try and match up, what do I need the ball to do from the ball to that point that I picked out.
To get there, and then drop in from there.
Yeah, to then drop in. So, and then I'm just basically trying to paint a picture of the putt. I can see it's like fairly straight for most of the way, and then it should just go a little left. There is some wind off the left, so if it's strong enough, I might take that into account. So I might just go a little straighter. So when I match those two kind of lines up, I'm seeing it just outside right, be half a cup. I'll do the spot putting where I've picked out this little thing here to try and aim over. Take my 3 practice strokes, trying to feel the pace and see the putt one last time. Try and aim as well as I can, and just let go. No, and then you misstrike it.
Go on, hit it again, that's right.
All right.
Putt. So it's interesting you talked about like a spot in front of you in terms of lining up.
Yeah.
You obviously play on a lot of quick greens.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that in terms of distance? Would you be thinking, oh, well, in my head I'm visualising the hole a bit shorter, or are you purely just working on the feel that you've built up from your drills before?
Yeah, I mean, on extreme putts, like if it's a really downhill putt, I'll sometimes imagine like a hole 3 feet short, just because I know you're always going to err on hitting it long, so that's a good way of negating something like that. And the same if it's a particularly uphill into the grain type putt, I'll do the same thing. Hopefully by then I've built enough feel on those greens for that week that I should be dialed in. And you're almost using this first few holes as you kind of build and feel throughout the day. So I'll really try and pay attention. If I've got a 30 footer on the first and I don't just hit the putt and then kind of not pay attention, I'm really looking at the pace and how did that feel, where did it finish, and throughout the round, that's how you build up a feel. Whereas I guess especially amateurs would just kind of hit a putt and then they're walking after it straight away and not really looking at it. And obviously if I hit a putt a bit firm as well, like I want to see what the ball's done past the hole.
Yeah.
And if I'm not paying attention, I might miss something crucial that it could have told me when the ball went past the hole. So once I'm on the course, it's all about, I'm basically just trying to feed my brain with as much visual information as possible, then let go and just hit the putt.
I guess each shot is like it's almost building up, like what you said with the pitch and having like that bank of information. Like each time you hit a putt, you're learning something about what you're doing. So like, did that set off where I wanted it to? Did that break as much as I thought it was going to? So actually just watching each shot very carefully builds up that database and makes you better without you actually like hitting more putts.
Exactly. Yeah. You're like extracting more information per putt, so you don't have to do as much, if you know what I mean. Whereas you could spend an hour hitting putts. Like if I was just on this gate not paying attention, I could be there for 2 hours and it wouldn't do anything for me. But that's why I limited to 10 putts and 20 putts, because that's enough for me. As long as I'm focused, that's enough for me to kind of get what I need from it, and it saves me time. It means I'm not stood there for an hour hitting putts on a gate. So
quality over quantity.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, there's been some amazing tips there. Definitely lots for people to learn from. So thank you so much for your time, and
no problem at all.
Good luck this season.
Thanks very much.